All right. Well, thanks for coming to this session. I appreciate you guys showing up. Last year, I was in your seat. I was actually sitting with you guys, learning about Power BI, trying to figure out how does this tool work and how can I leverage it in my business. So I'll jump into it a little bit here. I'll give you my intro. This is top 10 tutorials. I'm going to try and do it David Letterman style. It's going to be fast. We're going to go quick. So this will be a quick, I've got 10 full tutorials that we're going to go through, so I'm going to go fast. These are tutorials that I've built off of my website. So if you go to PowerBI.Tips is my website. If you go to the website, all the tutorials we talk about here will be on the website as well. So if there's a topic here that you like, go check out the website, search for some content. I'll put a blog post out next day or so, and I'll put all the topics that I'm going to talk about. What makes me a little bit unique and different from my site is I start from giving you the data. I walk you through building measures, and then we build out visuals at the very bottom. So it's basically soup to nuts. I give you the data set. We walk you all the way through. So this was kind of like my journey. I'm an employee of Johnson Controls. I came from the mechanical engineering world, so lots of data, sensors, Excel sheets, loved Excel. So quick question, how many of you are Excel gurus? Let's say love Excel. Raise your hands. All right, good. I'm in your world. I belong with you. All right, so second question. How many of you guys would say, I'm the business? Not many more hands. All right, mental note, take off IT jokes off slides. Just kidding, just kidding. So there's always this kind of a dichotomy a little bit between like the business guys and the guys who are in the IT space. And so I come from the business side. I live in the business. I was in sales and marketing for a period of time, working on our data and analytics. I actually had the luxury of becoming a 2017 MVP this year for the Power BI Tips work. So happy to be a part of that team as well. So thank you. Oh, I appreciate it. You don't have to clap. No. You're too nice. You're too nice. All right. So we're going to get right into it. I've got 10 of them. We're going to kind of crank through. I've got about 5 minutes per tutorial, and we're just going to start flying. All right? Here we go. Dig in. All right. So one of the tricks that I found that is fairly helpful is when you are using your data. So the business kind of setup here is I had a team of people in our company. They were using Power BI, the desktop, and they were sharing their PBIX files between the business units or between people. Hey, I'm going to email it. Well, what happens is when inside Excel, if you grab an Excel file and load the data, it stays on your computer. So you have to send the data and the file to somebody else. When you get it there, you're like, it's broken. What did you send me? This is junk. Nothing works. It doesn't refresh. Well, there's a trick you can do with this. And so this is going to be showing you how to load all of your data into a folder. So this will let you consolidate your data here. So we're going to start off with this folder piece here. So we'll grab my little shortcut here because I'm cheating. We're going to go get data. We're going to load from a folder here. Click Connect. Plop in my address. Hit OK. So if I had multiple files that I wanted to send someone, I could then zip them all up, or I could just send them to this folder, and they can set up the structure on their desktop on their end. So we're going to edit this query a little bit. We're going to get right into it here. So a couple tricks here right off the bat. If you click on areas that have these kind of like highlighted URL links, when you click in the little gray area next to them, it reveals to you down below a little helper bar. This is what the data is inside that record. Very important, especially when you start manipulating some of these columns and start looking at your data. You can peer around into some things and see what's there. For this example, we're going to just do the combined buttons file. So we're going to take these 2 CSV files. And what it's going to do, this is a newer feature of Power BI. It brings up a dialog box where it tries to anticipate what the files will look like. So you can pick a file to be your primary file and how it will look at the data, or you can just pick whatever first file is in the record. So we'll take the first file here, we'll hit OK. So as an engineer, I would often go through a lot of my data sets. I'm bringing in 2 files, I'm bringing it in all at once and to make a table. Sometimes, especially in the business world, I experience a lot of, you do a report once, and you're adding one more file to it. So your data set just grows a little bit longer every month or every week or whenever that recycles. So this is a neat way of doing this. So now I can actually just throw another file into this, and my data set will automatically grow. So instead of picking just a file, let's go back here to the desktop. Let's say next month just rolled along. April is now officially here of 2016. Throw it in here. We'll go back over to the desktop. So now I will refresh the query here, and now my next chunk of data is already there. So this kind of makes things a little bit easier when you're bringing in cyclical data over and over again. The structure is the same. You can make your report. You can get it done once. You can hit refresh, walk away, get a coffee, tell your boss it's going to take 2 days to get all the data back together, to smash it back up, come back and say, OK, it's done. Here you go. Here's the file, and the report's up to date. So this is kind of one little tip and trick here I'm going to give you on this one. All right? And that's the first one. Let's move back over here. All right. Number 9. All right, so this one is using parameters in Power BI. So I gave you that illustration kind of earlier of, hey, what happens when you send these files to somebody else? How do they know to re-put in the new location of that folder we were working with earlier? So this will allow us to be able to do manipulation of the parameter that we're going to make that will just be able to enter in the file location for us. So we're going to switch back over. All right, so we're now back in Power BI. All right, so we're going to pick up another folder here. It's going to make me apply some changes from our earlier query. All right, so this time we're going to go to here, we're going to edit queries. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to manage my parameters. So we're actually going to build something from scratch in here. So I'm going to hit new, and we're going to do file location. So this is something I'm going to build myself. And we're going to just say it's going to be text. And for kicks and giggles, I need to be able to get to that address on my desktop. So I will go grab my folder location, drop her right in here, and hit OK. So now we have just a parameter. So now let's go through, and we'll do the same procedure again. We're going to load things from the folder. But this time, we're going to use a little bit different technique on the load side. So new source, drop down to the folder, click connect. All right, so before we were able to paste in something here or browse, this little guy here that I did not talk about allows me to enter in my parameter now. So I can enter my parameter. I've already filled out my file location for where I've put my files. I hit OK. Boom, here we are. So now we have a parameter that's going to be able to control this. Now, there's many, many different uses for parameters. You can have multiple SQL databases sitting around. You can use a table of all the information, connection strings and such, that you can make a parameter piece. So you can have a query that runs, and then you can just pop in parameters to it. Or you can toggle between parameters. So if you want to toggle between projects, we have an example where we have multiple projects sitting in Jira. And it's an on-premise server. And what we can do is we can then enter a parameter that allows us to toggle between the different groups or the project groups. And so we can rerun that query and get the data back in. It's kind of an interesting use for parameters. All right, we're going to edit this guy. All right, and here we are. So we're going to name this one number 9 now. And again, we can kind of peek at some of the files here. Now this time, we're actually bringing in Excel files that we can see this time. That's what the binary is telling me down here. And we have different records. So for kicks and giggles, let's just combine these things up, and we'll see what we get. So I'm going to use the combine arrows again. I'm going to bring all 4 of those files in and compile them. Again, it's asking me for what is my demo file, which is going to be the one I'm going to use as reference. It's going to be the first file. This is what it will look like. Good to me. Move on. Going to remove my window and bring it back here. All right, so here we are. Now it gives me my source name, and now it gives me the different ranks of country, and now I have gold, silver, and bronze medals in here. So this looks pretty good to me for right now. We've now been able to load this. All right, let's just hit close and apply. Let's quickly throw a little something on the page here. Let's just say we want to have the source name here, and let's just go country by the total number of medals they've received. All right, we got a little graphic there. We can see the sizes of everyone across the globe. Let's drop it into a table, and then we can sort it by total. Let's go the other way. It's more interesting. All right, so now what we can do is we can take our source name here, and we can add it as slicer, and then we can start picking and slicing our data based on the folders that they came from. All right. So let's just go one little step further here on this one. let's just switch something up. Let's just say someone renamed the file or remove this to a different computer. So it's actually metals 2 now. So if I go back over to the folder, if we try to refresh this now, we should get a nice little, hey, wait a minute, something's going wrong. We can't quite figure out what's going on here. And I have a lot of stuff in here now. I think number 9 is the one we're finding. Here, oh, I can't find it. What's going on? So we hit close here. So this is the part where it makes it a little bit more user-friendly to the user. I don't have to have them dive into the query editor, go find the little bit of string or the little bit of text we have that defines our file location. We can do it right here from the main part of the dashboard. So right here at Edit Queries, we will edit the parameters. And right here where it says metals, we just change the file name. So you can actually have like a little blurb, a little text paragraph somewhere that says, hey, if you're doing this and you move these files around, click this button, do this little thing, change your file name, boom, you're done. So we hit OK, apply my changes, and voila, we're back in business. Things are looking like they're happy again. Okay? It's kind of a neat little trick about sharing some data around. Cool. All right, we'll migrate back over here. All right, number 8, working our way down. So we kind of talked about loading some metals. Now we're going to try to load multiple Excel files from one folder. Now I did this one kind of earlier on in Power BI. Power BI has done some good modeling or some steps and procedures that they apply later on when you load queries in through the query editor. But this is still a technique you can use. So behind the scenes inside the query editor, there's this language called M. It manipulates, it allows you to grab your data. You can do a lot of really cool stuff with M. So what you can do is you can add columns, which we'll do, that will allow us to add sections of M code right in the query editor. So you don't have to know code per se, but you can do it in something that's a little bit more cleaner and business friendly. All right, so we'll switch over here. All right. So let's move over here to number 8. All right, this one I got to make sure I get it right this time. This one's a tricky one, jumping around a little bit, writing code. In live demos, this is like where everyone falls apart. You miss one little comma, one little note, you botch the whole thing. So we're going to go slow here to make sure I get it right. All right, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to go in and edit our query number 9. Now, one thing I didn't talk about earlier, because I talked about M already, I'll just jump into it a little bit. Has anyone explored the advanced editor yet? Show of hands. People dig around there? OK, so people are a little bit comfortable in there. So they've seen the code. You probably thought, hey, I need to move my code somewhere else. This is the advanced editor behind the scenes. This is what's writing all the code for you. You have these steps, these sequential steps on the right-hand side. So you can then just remove the steps, and it will undo the steps that you previously did. So for example, I'm just going to kind of go backwards in steps here. Let's get rid of rename columns. All right, this is invoking a custom function. Yeah, I probably don't need that either. All right, so we're back to kind of the beginning of this query. Now what I'm going to do, this is a technique I use quite often, and this really helps with changing data sets. So this is like a tip here. If I grab the columns I want to keep, the 2 columns, and I right-click on them and say remove other columns, I highly recommend doing this. What happens is someone somewhere changes the report, and now you're loading Excel files, and there's a new column. Ah, it's broken. No, it's not broken. There's just an extra column sitting around somewhere. So if you use this, you'll go in there, and you'll be able to select only the columns that you need, and the data set can grow longer without having to worry about it. So it's basically just cleansing out some of the data that you're just not interested in. We've done a number of projects where we were getting large dumps of data from customers, and they were continually adding or changing or doing something to the columns. And so we kept spending a lot of time reworking our data sets. So in our typical IT space, we'd have to kick off a project and figure out what's going on, where's the mishap, what happened here, and it would take a lot longer than just right-click, remove other columns. So again, I'm the business user. Don't kill the messenger. All right, so we can look at some of these guys here. What I'll do here is I'm going to add a column, a new custom column here. So this one, we're going to actually start manipulating some of the M code, and we're going to add some more columns to ourselves. So here we're going to add a new column, Excel load. I'm going to try and paste in my code here with not 2 equal signs. And then this is where I can pick up from the editor the content piece. So I'm actually going to run, this is the M code that's in the background. I'm going to hit it right here, let it run. So now I've brought in a table. So for each individual file, I've loaded the table that belongs to that file. So now I can see the tables. We have some parameters there. I can expand those columns. And because I've looked at this before, I'm only going to take the data piece. So we'll grab the data. And now if I look at the tables, all right, we're getting closer. But this time, I have columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I don't have the headers where I want them. So we're going to manipulate, we're going to add a little bit more code on top of this that will promote that very first row up to the headers. So I'm going to cheat again. Grab my little cheat sheet. Come back over here. All right, so now we will add another column. We will do a promote headers. And here we will paste in the code. This time we will add our Excel data load. Close the brackets. And now we've got one step further. So finally, we have an unexpected error. Just kidding. Let's see if it will let me do that. OK, now it's okay, it's working. Whew. Again, live demos. You can bear with me. All right, so we now have a table. We have all the promoted headers across the top now. We have all the data brought in. Looks good. And now we can expand this one more time. We'll bring in all our data. And now we've got all our data in our data set now. So now we have everything that we need here. Another kind of trick, this is a tip that I've used a number of times. If you're doing this in SQL, it's a bear. So I've shown this to some SQL guys, and they said, wow, you would have saved me 2 days of development with this trick. So hopefully this maybe will save you a little bit of time. So what we're going to do here is we have this column called total. This is the total number of medals for that country. I don't really need that one. So let's remove that column. We have gold, silver, and bronze. Often you're going to have data that comes in. It's going to be months kind of stacked on top of themselves over and over and over and over again. Not very helpful when you're trying to visualize the data. Sometimes you need a long table instead of data that's stretched out very far. So on this one, you're going to right-click, and then you will go down here to unpivot columns. So what this does is it takes the header names and makes them an attribute, and it takes the value of that item and it applies it to that attribute. So now I have, it's actually repeating data now. So instead of I had one record for United States, now I have 3 for the gold, silver, and bronze. So I'm going to clean up a couple things here that we don't need. Let's remove those. Looks good enough to me. Close and apply. All right, so now we have a different data set. Let's just throw some numbers out here so we can see what's going on. Wouldn't be Power BI without some visuals. Let's bring in the, can't see my columns all the way. Let's bring in the country over here. Let's bring in the attribute. And then we can sort by our values. Maybe. There it goes. So let's throw out a bar chart, because that'll probably look more pretty. We'll throw the attribute as a legend. We'll throw our values down here at the values. So now we're able to break out our table. Ah, this is a good one. I do this mistake all the time, and I did it just now. So these don't look quite right because they're all kind of small and staggered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this thing, and you'll see what I did here. It says sort by count of value. That seems odd. Count of value doesn't really seem like what I'm trying to actually get to. The data I'm looking for is the values. So I'm going to go back into the query editor really quick here. When this goes to this last step here called change type, it tries to pick out the best. There. It tries to pick out the best data set for that column. It'll automatically detect them for you. So highly recommend when you're done and you're ready to leave the query editor, spend a little time and go through your data, pick out if they're text or numbers, and it'll help you later on to avoid the mistake I just did. You'll miss it. Trust me, it'll happen more than once. So if we flip that over to now a whole number, and we'll say this value is supposed to be now a whole number. So now our values should be the correct increment. Come back over here. This should look a little more dynamic. And that's kind of what we're going for. We can sort it by value, and there we go. Then we can click on the different aspects of the chart. All right, good. I'm getting some head knobs. All right, some people are gelling. I'm getting some good tricks out of it. All right, let's keep going. All right, moving along. Custom date tables. All right, so this is one I've struggled with a lot, particularly with new people coming into the service, and especially around Power BI. time intelligence inside Power BI is kind of a mind bender. There's some really crazy cool stuff you can do, and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble as well. So one of the things that I've found that I like to do, there's kind of two different methods. SQL developers typically bring in there's a table somewhere, just a bunch of dates, and we'll just suck the whole thing of dates in. I find that sometimes that's efficient and that works very well. In other cases, I need to build kind of my own date table. There's something that I need to do that's special around my dates. So I found I can just kind of build my own. All right, so let's move over here. We'll show you how to build this from scratch. All right. So here's the interaction. So we're not going to dive into the editor part. We're actually going to kind of stay at a higher level. We will say we've already brought in the data, and now we're going to start playing with it. So ideally, what we're building here is this is the slicer piece. So over here on the, oh good, on this side, I'll just say this side, because I don't know if it's right or left from your view. On this side, we have all of our dates. On the other side, I have like a nice slicer that makes sense to the business user and how I want to slice my data. I don't necessarily want to say, some arbitrary picking date ranges. Maybe I just want to say, what's my last week's worth of data? So the way we wrote this query is it picks up the day that the query refreshes right now. And what it does is it says, today is now, and I want to count backwards 90 days. So every time the report refreshes, I refresh now, and I get my chunk of 90 days. So that's how the query has been written. So it'll be able to intelligently figure out what the current day of the week is. So as I select different slicers here, I grab these, and now I'm getting different filter contexts about these dates. So I'm going to walk you through this. The tutorial goes into much more detail. There's a lot happening in the query editor here. So I'm going to kind of breeze through it and just give a high level, because there could be a lot you can do in this piece here. All right, let's go edit this query. I'll show you the magic behind the front side. All right. So this is one I'm fairly proud of. I did some good thinking on this one. At least I feel like I did. Let's start here at the top. We're going to walk through the beginning. So the very beginning part here, we actually make just a list of dates. And when I was talking about the time now, this portion of the equation grabs the time that the query refreshes right now. And then the duration, so I say I'm going to grab 90 days back, and then I want to be duration -1. So I'm going to take today, I'm going to keep clicking back 90 days. And I'm building basically just a list. Once I have the list, I can then click this button up here, to table. It moves me down to the next one, and now I have just a nice table date list. All right, so now here's where the magic starts happening. So I have my list of dates. Yeah, woohoo, that's not that bad. But I use this large chunk of code up top here. And one of the things I'm able to do here is, again, you can check it out on the site and kind of pick apart the code on your own to see how it works. But I actually picked the day, and so you can say day.Wednesday. So this would be the start day of your week. So if I want to change the start day of my week, I can automatically shift all my data around. And I will throw a little plug in here. This would be a good part to put a parameter if you would want to do a parameter. So I'll kind of weave it back around there. So you could make this actually a parameter piece and say, what day of the week do you want this to start? And it can automatically recalculate all your time frames for you based on that parameter input. So we're going to just arbitrarily change this to Tuesday. If I have my caps locks on, Tuesday. And if you'll notice here, my zeros have now changed here on the side. So the way I built the measure here, or this calculation, is if it's not a full week, if I'm a part of a week, it becomes zeros. If I am a full week, the first day that becomes my full week is now a week of 1. So I should have 7 1s, 7 2s, 7 3s, and so forth through the data set. All right. Then what I do is I do just a simple if this, then that kind of piece. So I have current week. And what I'm going to do is going to build out all of it here all at once. So I have a section where I've just denoted all the zeros are current week. Then I have last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 4 weeks. Now, this is where the unpivoting columns make sense, because now I have 6/6/2017 actually belongs to multiple slices of that data. It belongs to 1 week, it belongs to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 4 weeks. So that's kind of how I structured this. We do the fancy unpivot columns. Boom. Now we've got our list. I've got 2 of the same pieces of data. We move one column. We'll rename it so it makes sense. And I changed the type on this one, so I didn't screw it up on this one. So here we are. We've got our full list, and now we can use this, and then we can slice by current week, next week, or prior week. So kind of a neat little slicer piece there. All right, out of that. Let's transition over to this one. All right, next one. % change. This one, by far, I think, is the most volume of hits I've ever gotten on the site. I have a number of topics around it. I've done it a number of different ways. Stuff like this can get complex. Later on, I start talking about, in the newer blogs I have recently, we start adding variables to this. So think of your data model as this block of data, right? And as soon as you click on a piece of the visuals somewhere in your visual report layout, you've narrowed that window down to that little specific area of the data model. The data model is still there. So what we're going to do is, later on we'll talk about it. You can check it out on the site. We do some fancy finagling where I can grab the filter context of the visual and then reach around that to grab other pieces of dates. All right, let's transition over here. This will be a basic, simple, well, hopefully it'll be percent change calculation. All right, so here I have some dates and I have some scans. Let's make this a table so we can see what we're looking at. And another trick that I use, and again, not everyone has to do this, I usually start with a table when I'm doing stuff. It just seems to be easier for me to digest. Again, coming from an Excel background, just seems to make sense. That way I can see kind of what's happening with the data. So we have scans here, and now I'm going to start building some measures on top of this. So I'm going to click New Measure. I'll show you this too. Measure went in the wrong bucket. So I have tutorial number 1. That happens all the time. You'll click something, and it'll just show up somewhere else. You're like, oh, why is it there? You can change that. Underneath the Modeling tab, you can change the home table of that equation. So because it's not filled out here, I'm just going to copy this in first. Oh, get it. There we go. All right, we're going to go home, hit our new measure. We're going to flip our measure right in there. Boom. All right, it's in the wrong table, so I'm going to grab the measure. I'm going to go over to the Modeling tab. And it should let me move it over, move it out. And we're going to put it in 6. So just one way to move your measures around, just a little trick. It's there. I didn't know about it for a long time. I thought, oh, I kept remaking measures all the time because I kept thinking I'm putting them in the wrong place. It happens. All right, so let's keep going. Let's make some more. So this is the total number of scans. We're basically just totaling everything that we see. We're going to use this other function, prior month scans. So I'm going to see if I can get it in the right table this time. Home, new measure. Drop her in there. Boom. Prior month scans. And now we're going to calculate the percent change of that. So this is kind of the reason why I like to see the tables, because it can give me some of this filter context. I can see what's going on. If I now bring over, let's do total scans first. Should match the same data I have. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Now if I bring over prior month scans, what it should be doing is it should be shifting my context of looking at the prior month's data and putting it next to the data I have. OK, great. But this doesn't make sense until I do the percent change. So I do the percent change portion at the bottom here. We'll add in another measure. Our final measure goes here. And then we'll dump in percent change at the end. Aha! And now it makes sense. If I had 130 scans last month and I have 90 this time, I'm at 44% of my scans. So I'm time shifting. Now this stuff your head will hurt with all the time shifting stuff you need to do for your reports. I'm reporting this month's data, and I'm reporting last month's data, and then I click something, and then stuff disappears. So there's a lot of really neat things inside DAX that will help you do that. So what I'd highly recommend from my little knowledge of DAX so far would be get some DAX books, go read some stuff, go get some research about DAX. Is super helpful, and you can basically build any kind of calculation you want in DAX. The only thing you really need to use for columns that I've seen, and again, I have a limited knowledge, but it's just if you need filter context. So if I need to select A or B, that would become a column. Everything else you can most likely do inside your DAX. All right, charts and tables are great, but I don't like them. I'd rather have a visual. So let's flip over here and make a visual now. So I'm going to add a little flavor to this guy. We're going to come in here. We're going to say we want to put the dates across the axis. We're going to remove the date hierarchy and just make it straight dates. And then we will add the percent changed to the values. So I'm getting above and below. If it's a higher percent change above, we're getting the bars above. Now, something here I like to do a lot. This just seems to be this is a preference of mine. I like to add things like color saturation to stuff. Adds a little bit more depth to your visuals. One more step. We're going to go a little bit farther here. We're going to hit the paint roller or paintbrush. We're going to go over here to the data colors, and I'm going to flip on the diverging piece. So this allows me to then scale the colors across. So my minimum values will be in red. I want them to be bad. And I want my maximum values to be green. So that makes it's positive. Now the colors don't quite line up because now you've got red on the top of the bar, and it doesn't really make sense. So now what we're going to do is we can go back here, and you don't have to specify all of them, but you can center it out at 0. And so when I center it at 0, all my red lines drop below, all my green lines go above. Kind of a neat little trick there. Kind of a neat visual. All right. Talk about mind benders. This next one's good. All right, sorry, I jumped ahead. I got excited on this one. I like this one. This is good. So this is some content I got from Rob Colley's book. Highly recommend it. But it's the concept of a disassociated table. Blah, blah, blah. Disassociated table. I cannot say it. It's not going to come out right. Sorry. It's basically you have two tables, and I'm not building a link between the two tables. They're separate. I'm not going to actually build the physical link. But we're going to be able to use data from both tables in the visuals. All right, this is another tricky one. This one I think is pretty cool. All right, so we're on to, so I have two tables here, and to prove I have not linked them, no magic behind the curtain. So I have bins, my bins that I've made. This is a table that I just wrote. I just said I'm going to just arbitrarily pick a min and a max and some criteria. So I have a min and a max and a name. Boom, done. This is some US Census data. I will point out this was actually scraped off of Wikipedia. So you can actually use get data from web. And in the tutorial, I'll talk you through how to go to web pages and just scrape some data if it's in table form. So that's kind of another trick you can use using this tutorial later on. Zooming back over to the tutorials. All right. So we're going to build a measure here. And this is a bin calculator. Now, I'll talk more about it on the website. I'm not going to go into the full detail here. Let's try and get it in, copy that, and let's get it into the right table. Let's stick it in the census one, see if it'll go there. All right, good. Paste it in here. Voila, measure has been created. All right, next. We will grab a filled area chart here. Now, I didn't have internet earlier, so hopefully this is working better now. Now, I'm going to go over here. We're going to say, let's grab the location should be the state. All right, good. We have a map. Good. Internet's here. Let's go and grab the legend for the name. Uh-oh. So I just grabbed the name from one table, and I grabbed the state from a different table, but they're not linked. So it's actually saying, uh-oh, there's a problem here. So I see the details. Hey, there's no relationship. I can't figure out what's going on here. Ha! Disassociated tables. This is the tricky part, and this is the part that's really cool. So if I take the bins piece now, and I add this to color saturation. Ha! I gotcha. It's there. I've got the link. So what the binning does is it actually is using, and the equation is kind of neat here, is basically taking the information from the bin and saying, if this value is less than this number in the bins, or greater than this number in the bins, return some value. This is essentially what's going on. So now I've got this cool chart. So I have my different population segments, and I can see the smaller states versus the larger states. This will also work in a bar chart. So now if I go down here, throw in a bar chart. And this time we're going to grab the bins. Actually, we're not. We're going to grab the name and throw it at the axis first. We're going to build it correctly here. And then we will grab bins will be my value. So basically, I'm just counting the number of states that I observe in that bin. That's all I'm doing here. So let's sort this data by the bins. And now, let's add some color to it, with the name also going into legend. And I do this a lot, so this is another kind of trick that I do. I will add two fields into the axis and the names. I really like the colors all to blend together. So I try and make visuals that have a lot of similar colors. So if I click on one, I recognize somewhere else the information's there. So for example, in this one, I have 3 different places in these visuals that tell me big, small, and little bars. So what I do, personal preference, in the bar chart, I like taking away the legend, and in this map, no legend. Because I've already labeled what type of bar they are by the bar chart. So again, it's just minimal information. Say it once and only say it once. Just a technique I like to use. Someone else can use something different. Just thought it was pretty cool. Then when I click on these guys, it's now filtering between the different areas, and it'll zoom in to my different size states. Okay? Great. Got some head nods. All right, it's gelling. All right, this is good. Let's keep going. All right, moving along. All right, so I didn't really talk to Santa. Don't tell my kids this. But this was one that I did around Christmas time, so hence there were elves all over the slide. Sorry about that. But let me give you the business setup of this. This actually came from a real business question, not with Santa or elves, but a generic business question. The idea was, OK, if I need to have a bunch of numbers, say I'm looking at production runs on a manufacturing line. Lots of things are coming off the production line. And I need to look at the standard distribution of how much data is coming off of there. So a mean does a bar, height. I get that. But what's the variance that goes along with it? I don't get that information out of a bar. So I'm going to merge over here and start talking about some R topics. This is R visuals inside Power BI. Now, I've spent a lot of time kind of making them look pretty. So our visuals will definitely be noticeably different inside your Power BI. But ultimately, what's happened here on this bar chart is I've got the mean, which is represented by the bar. And then one standard deviation away from that mean is now the whiskers. So now I can see the elf's performance. And then I can also see what his standard deviation is. How consistent is my elf in making product? Kind of a simple setup, but a better chart to look at than just a table or a graph. All right, let's go over here. All right, into the R we go. So I'm going to ask another question here. How many people have explored R and played with it? Raise your hands. Couples? All right, good. We got some topic. OK, good. So for the 10 of you that do, this will be good for you. For everyone else, you can just sit around and enjoy the pretty colors. No, just kidding. Send this along to your data scientists. Have them play with it. This is one of the things. So I'm currently working on my master's in data science right now. And I'm finding that it's very helpful to build at least a portion of the visuals inside Power BI. I like the modeling of R. I mean, the modeling of the tool Power BI. And then once I've modeled data, and I'll show you how this works, I can apply filters or slicers to it that can change the data. So I can have one visual, I build it once, and then I can push different data into it different ways and see how the data reacts. Kind of a neat idea for data scientists if they want to start leveraging Power BI for some of their R and machine learning stuff. All right, so first thing off here, we're going to build an R visual. So I'm going to pick up R over here. This is the visual that we're going to use. We are going to add fields. And I want to say some very R words here for a little bit. We're going to grab a measure. And we're going to get some a field, a parameter, an elf, and then my xmin and or my ymin and ymax. All this does is build a data frame. So it takes the data model of Power BI and it pushes it into the data frame. And we can see that happening here in this step. It's commented out. But it's basically just giving me the parameters. The name of the column that I put in is the name that will be presented inside my data. All right, now we're going to get to our script. Now I will give you a caveat on this. In order to use R inside Power BI, you need to have it installed on your computer. You need to have the packages you will be using. So in this, I'm using a package called ggplot, which is a pretty plotting tool. Also has to be installed on your computer. Microsoft has a version of all of these packages that are available inside the service, and will automatically use them. And you can go check their website. It's microsoft.mran. Again, all talked about on the blog, but you can check out to see what R packages are available and can be used in Power BI when you push stuff up to the service. All right, let's copy out our R script. We'll go over here, and now we'll hit run. There we go. Here's my plot. Boom. All right, so again, I'll illustrate the point that I was talking about earlier about the slicers and be able to turn stuff on and off and see different data. The visual is not interactive. So if I click on anything here, it's just a picture. That's all you get. So if I want to interact with it, though, I can add my elf over here on the side, add him as a slicer, bring him down so I can see. And now I can control. And so here's another trick. If you hold the control key inside a slicer and then select multiple items, you can then select multiple items inside the slicer. You don't have to select one thing at a time. Don't know if everyone knew that one. That's kind of a neat trick. Took me a while to figure that one out. But anyways, there we go. There's an R chart, and now we can be able to slice it different ways. All right, moving along. So here's another challenge that I solved with Power BI that I couldn't do, but I solved it with R. So in this one, I needed to have a cumulative totals chart. So every blue bar is part of the cumulative total, that's the shaded areas in the background. The bar is the value of the parameter, or the thing that I was measuring. And then the dots were maybe some other parameter. It could have been an average sale price or something like that. But I needed 3 data sets. I needed a bar chart, I needed a cumulative area chart, and I needed a scatter plot. I need all this together. You can't do that in Power BI. They give you bar charts and line charts, and they give you a couple variations, and there's some things on the custom visuals pages that you can get a couple back and forth, but I couldn't get these 3. And that's kind of why I did this tutorial. All right, so zoom in over here. We'll zip along here. All right, same thing. We're going to just drop in. I'm going to move a little quicker here. Throw the R up there. All right, so this time we're just going to grab the same parameters. We're going to grab our cumulative total. Again, this was a measure that I created. Then we will grab the item that we're going to be looking at, our price, and then our sales number. So basically, I think the price is the bar. The cumulative total is the total of all my sales. And the price is just the little dots. So then we'll go over here. We'll grab the R code. And we'll go back to our visual. And hit run. All right, there it is. Another R visual. So what I will point out is this didn't just happen out of the box. Clearly, I was doing some work behind the scenes to tweak some things and make it look good and kind of get a lot of stuff together. So how did I do that part? So there is a little bit of work that's going to require to get this to happen. So what Power BI gives you is an ability to pop out the data. So I hit this, use the external script. It will then fire up my RStudio, and then it'll let me dump in the code that I just used. So here is the code that came right out of Power BI. Dropped it right here, and now I can run it here. So if I run this, it should give me the same graph. Hopefully. Could not find what I just typed in there. I must have missed a dot somewhere. Again, live demos. Love them. All right. It will if you type your code right. We'll skip that part. Moving along. All right. So we have this one. And again, same thing that we were doing before. If I want to select customer A, I can select customer A, and it'll change my data. If I want to select customer B, and again, change my data. So kind of a neat way of being able to slice certain things and use those inside the R visuals. This one actually, and I'll point out one thing here, it does use some statistics in here. In the fill, I'm using the stat identity. So that you're able to start applying some other R statistics functions inside your data as well. All right, let's keep going. All right, next one. All right, this one's just pretty. That's the only reason why I put it in here. I like this one. So the illustration for this is, say you're target practicing something, you're shooting at a target, and then you keep hitting the target over and over again, right? You shoot a lot of times, and there'll be concentrations of what you're trying to hit. So if you think of that as a grid, as an XY grid, there'll be densities of where you're concentrating. So if you're accurate, all your points will be together. But if you're precise, all your points will be in the same location. So you can see where the density of things are in an XY graph. Now what this visual will do is it takes this information, and I'm going to show you what a normal XY scatter would look like. So this is the same data, just in a scatter plot. Boom, there it is. Not very telling. There's really no insight that I'm looking at from this visual to say, yeah, that's telling me there's just a lot of data on the screen. It looks like a mess. So that's basically all I can determine from that right now. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to use a density plot, and we're going to put this thing into this density plot. It should look a little different. So let's again drop in our R. We'll bring in our new data set. We're going to drop in just X and Y values. That's all I need to pass to this R function. I'm going to grab our code. Now this one, you can notice we're using 2 libraries. In the previous ones, I was using only ggplot. And now I'm using another plot called hexbin, which is actually letting me bin a cluster of points together. It's actually clustering the points together for me. So if I grab those, copy it over here, hit go. There we go. And now we've got a pretty chart. Looks a little bit better than my earlier graph that I had put on there. A little more telling of where is the actual hot spots. What information should I really be looking for? So let's run it again to make it resize. And maybe it's a little too granular. Maybe it's too small. We can actually, again, this is part of the advantage of using R for some of your visuals. You can really dial in. I mean, it's like pixel for pixel perfect. So if you don't want an axis on it, take it off. If you don't want it to have numbers on it, take them off, leave the axis. If you don't want it to be a certain color scheme, you can do anything you want. Now, it does take more time, but it gives you a very wide flexibility of what do you want to do with it. So if you can plot it in R, most likely you can stick it in Power BI as well. Excuse me. All right, so let's change this guy a little bit further here. Let's change them from 30 bins to 20 without hitting that. Roll. There we go. And now it looks a little bit better. Now we can see the density is around 60 and around 20. Kind of a neat little visual. All right, moving on. Drum roll, please. This is the last one. This has been waiting for the whole time. The best one I have. Okay, maybe not, but we'll go with it. All right. We are at the color theme generator. So technically, this is a tutorial. I just talk about how we're doing it, but I actually put a tool out there as well to help you generate some color themes. Now, one of my biggest headaches with designing dashboards is when you get a color scheme that you need to adhere to. Your customer says, hey, use my logo, or hey, I want to use their logo and their color schemes. Yay, that's great. Now I have to go through every single visual and change all the colors on every visual. Has anyone done that? Has everyone like spent time going through every, yes, you know. You spent hours doing this. It's fun. I know. All right, so this is something that I was long overdue. I think this is a feature that's definitely needed inside the tool. All right, let's transition. All right. All right, so here's just a generic plot. I've just got some information there. I will show you how to. So the color theme generator, actually, I jumped ahead too fast. Sorry. I just want to show you where the button is. This is the switch color theme. So what you can do here is you can import the theme right from here, and then you can just revert to default. What I will say is there is no extract out of your document the color theme that you already have placed in there. So if you make one, please save it, because you'll never get it back. You can't get it back out, so just hang on to it. I've done that before. Hang on your question. Let me just finish up, and we'll get you right at the end there. All right, so let's keep going here. We will make our own color theme real quick. We'll go here to Tools, Advanced Theme Generator. And then we're going to go grab some colors here real quick. So what we can do is here, you can drag this guy around. You can pick a shade of a color that you like on the color wheel. And then you can just click these buttons down below, and you'll start be able to add the colors to the theme. So I'm adding to the data colors bucket right now. OK, those colors look good. You can also add colors into the background or foreground colors. So let's go to make maybe a green. Let's do a background color of a lighter one, background. Let's go maybe a darker foreground color, and maybe a table accent that's a little bit lighter, table accent. So what this does is, this is from my site. It actually builds the JSON right for you right there. And then you can just hit download from it, zoop, and then it just drops it down to your computer. So now it's already formatted. It's already ready to go. It even gives you all the color codes. If you want, you can also copy and paste whatever you want into the window here. So if you want more color codes, you can just start adding them in there. So if you have a favorite color picker, if you have codes that you want, if you have hex codes somewhere else, just drop them in, and it'll automatically build them for you. So once we have that, we'll go over here to Switch Theme. We'll import our theme. Let's go back over here to our desktop. Boom, and boom. It'll say it loaded, and there's my new color theme. Now, I will caution you, with much power comes great responsibility. You can make really good dashboards, or you can make really bad ones, and I've seen some of them, so be careful. Try and pick good color schemes, play around with it, have fun with it, but you could totally botch your stuff, so just be FYI. And as an added bonus, as we're just getting out of here, I'll give you one last flavor of this. You only get to have, you can have as many as you want, really. So if I click on this guy here, use the paintbrush, and go data colors. If I click on this little button here, I only have so many colors presented here. But I'm going to actually load another theme, import one more theme here. We're going to go color themes. And this is my theme of many colors. Ta-da! So I've actually went time, and I spent some time and got 50 different colors, brought them all into the tool, and have 50 different bars graphed out. Each bar is its own color. I don't know where the limit is. I challenge someone to like spend a weekend and making a lot of colors and a really big visual with all of them in it. Go ahead. I don't know where it will land, but I've at least gone through 50 and said I can do 50. So be aware that even though that little color dropper down only has 8 or so colors, there's actually a lot more colors that you can utilize inside the color theme generator. Just to kind of another little trick. I don't know. Keep going. Pick more colors. Oh, yes. Yes. So I picked 50 colors in that it's just a string. I don't know if they repeat after that, if I did another 50 more. Number 50? As of right now, I don't know of any way of picking it. So you're kind of at the mercy of the tool. So I'm going to let you guys go because I'm keeping your time. But if you want, I'll be happy to sit around up top here and ask some more questions. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Have a great day.